Hey, good morning, Paula. Good morning. Oh, good morning to Doris and Emma as well. All right, let me pause the music real quick. And good morning to Susie as well. Susie, I think, is from over in Italy, if I remember correctly. So welcome to Susie from Italy. Welcome to Aaron, Alan. Welcome again to Paula and to Emma and to Doris as well. I never do. I never, ever, 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 ever do live streams on a Monday. But today's an exception to the rule because, as some of you know, I'm going on a brief trip down to Naples, Florida, because I've been called down there by an auction house to appraise a lot of machines from not a lot like a huge number, but a lot that they have set aside of machines that are coming from an estate down there, and they're wanting me to inject my expertise on what they should try to get for these machines by way of auction. So I'm leaving today for that trip, but I couldn't resist having just gotten done with surgery on Trish's 1800 12K that she bought originally from Alex Askarov over in England. Alex sold her the machine, shipped it over to her. She was carrying the machine by the handle, which should be a safe enough way to carry the machine. It's a very sturdy case. It's a very sturdy handle. But what happened is the bottom let loose and it went crashing down to the hard ground that Trish was carrying this machine over on. I've gotten some insight as to how that happened, and I'll show that to you once we uncover this 12K in just a few seconds. But I also wanted to show you the progress that I made on the machine in addressing all of the damage that it sustained when it crashed against the hard ground. I want to say that Trish said it was concrete, but I don't remember for sure. It was definitely a hard drop about 3 feet or so down to the ground, which was not part of the plan. And little bit on these cases. They're a Bentwood style case. They've got a really short base platform because of the design of the machine. The design on these 12Ks has very flat mechanics across the bottom, so it doesn't need much clearance. So the bulk of what you see here is the top Bentwood cover that goes over the machine. Now, what happens to these machines over time when they build these cases and they build the bases as well? Part of the process in building the base is to glue it together. What happens to glue from the 1800s? It starts to become brittle, it starts to dry out, and it starts to lose its adhesion. And this is something that is almost, we've heard about the bridges. We've heard about this. All of a sudden, this bridge will collapse, and it's been receiving regular inspections. The bridge has not been forgotten. They've gone through, on their normal cycle, and they've inspected the bridge. And yet, the bridge has developed a flaw or flaws along its support structure, and then all of a sudden, the bridge gives out. And sometimes no one is hurt. It's just a shocker, but sometimes people are seriously hurt or killed because of that hidden flaw. Well, there's no way that Alex would have known. There's no way he could have known. But this base had developed some flaws that made it vulnerable when Trish grabbed it by the handle and picked it up, that allowed the base to pivot and allowed it to fall free. That was cool. Allowed it to fall free of the top and go crashing down to the ground and receive serious damage. And I haven't done the base yet. I'm going to do the base hopefully before I leave today on my trip down to Florida. But I'm going to show you how severe the failure was and why it let loose, because generally these cases are pretty secure. They've got this clasp on this side. They've got these anchor points on this side over here, and they're generally not going to come apart. But when that glue starts to become brittle, anything can happen. So let me get the top off. And the way you get the top off, you just turn this little tab like you just saw me do. You open this little clasp up, and then you can lift this up straight away. And this also, I'll just show you real quick on the top of the dome cover. You can see the separation right there as well. So this also is going to have to be clamped together, kind of like that, and re-glued as well. Because if the top or the bottom is not as it should be, and right now it isn't. Plus we've got a little bit of separation along here as well where there's a crack, and I've got to use an injection process to get some of this glue into there and then clamp it so that the top and the bottom are secure. This is a neat little cubby, isn't it? If you've not seen these particular bentwood style covers that came with the 12Ks, it's got this cute little cubby here, 2 little compartments where you can put your goodies for the machine, and then you just rotate this to the side and it keeps it closed very nicely. And then they've got this little indentation over here as well on this side where that hand crank, part of the hand crank contour, can fit into this space. You probably can't tell by the video, but it recesses probably about 2 to 3 millimeters into the side of the case so that hand crank doesn't have to be taken off when you're transporting the machine. And again, these cases are generally secure ways to transport the machines by the handle. But when that glue starts to give way and become brittle, and it gets little separation points in it along the base, it will give way, and then that machine can unexpectedly come crashing down, as Trish experienced when she was transporting it. And to show you how severe it was, I'm going to turn it to the side a little bit here, bring the camera a little bit closer, give you an idea of how severe the failure was. When you start to pull on the side of here, and I'll kind of pull it like this to give you an idea. Tilt the machine back a little bit. That's how severe it is. It literally, the glue has, you can see the remnants of glue right there. The glue has literally given way so that there's literally no, I'll just take this pan out for right now. This is the drip pan that goes in the bottom of these 12K cases to catch extra oil and such as you're lubricating the machine. But you can see how severe the failure was. It literally separated completely. And that's why it didn't, it attaches to either side of the case here by the clasp and there on the other side of the anchor points, but the glue has totally failed. And again, I don't fault Alex for this. Alex is very, very meticulous in his preparation of his machines, but you simply wouldn't know. But I'm highlighting this right now so that if anyone else has a 12K, one of the original family style machines that Singer came out with, they can check for this by rotating the machine back, kind of like I did right here, kind of holding the machine and giving a little bit of a pull, giving a pull on this side to see if you get any separation on the rear of the machine as well over here. And then certainly on the other sides of the machine as well. But it gives you an idea that glue is not a forever thing. When this was glued together back in the 1800s, they probably used some really, really good glue, but over time it shrinks, it dries out, it becomes brittle, and it loses its effectiveness. And unfortunately, when they built these bases for these 12K family style machines, they did not peg them. In other words, they didn't use wooden dowels to reinforce the different corners of the machine. And that's something that I might end up doing. And I've done that on other bases as well to give it extra strength and extra durability. When you put those dowels in, they tend to grip that glue a little bit better, and they seat better, and it just provides extra protection. But you can see right now, I've got to literally kind of push it back together like this in order to hold it together. And you can see right now as it's together, it's almost invisible. How would you know? How would you know that this case was a ticking time bomb and getting ready to make this beautiful 12K vulnerable to a crash? And you can see right now, after all of my work, where before, as you looked across here, and we'll take a look at some of the pictures real quick, all of these had gotten bent. Actually, one of them right here had gotten completely, forget which one it is. No, I'm mistaken. It's this one right here. This one had gotten completely snipped off. And as we're looking at these three beautiful little tower pieces, which are integral to this machine, the one on the far right over here is going to control the upper tension. It's going to basically, as you screw it down, it's going to use a little band, and you'll see this in the Facebook shots. It's going to use a little band as you turn this down to use a pointed screw to push and to flux that band to increase the pressure on these discs down here. That's how you're going to maintain upper tension. This one in the middle is actually a spacer, and there's a little screw on the back of here. Kind of show it to you. There's a little screw on the back of there where you can adjust this up or down in order to get the proper spacing for the take-up arm. Because the take-up arm on these 12Ks is not attached directly to the mechanics of the machine. It's on a return spring type assembly. So when you push it down, it's almost like a yo-yo. You push it down, it fluxes back up. You push it down, it fluxes back up. And it's only when it works in conjunction with the movement of the needle bar, which is in the center here, that it gets movement and locomotion to pull up on that thread to define that lock stitch. If you didn't know it, that's really what the main function of that take-up arm is. As it moves up in the sewing process, it's going to pull that thread taut on the bottom of the material to define those lock stitches. This one, again, unlike most of them that's attached, most take-up arms are attached directly to the mechanics of the machine. This one is not on this early machine model. And then finally, this last one over here on the left is going to be your presser foot pressure. The more I turn this clockwise, the more it's going to push down to increase the feed factor of that presser foot bar. So they all three have very unique functions. This again is going to define the swing space of that take-up arm as it's working with the needle bar. This is going to define the upper tension. And finally, this one on the far left is going to define the presser foot pressure. So really quite a nice design and very, very innovative way back in the day when these first came out. Does anyone know when the first 12K kind of came on the scene? When did the first 12K come on the scene? And is it true? I'm going to ask you guys two questions. I'm going to make you kind of work this morning very early. Oh, I should say good morning to some other folks as well. Good morning to Osman from the beautiful country of Turkey. And good morning to Robin. And if I've missed anybody else, I know my moderating team, my leadership team is so attentive when it comes to making folks feel welcome. So I really don't focus heavily on the chat because I know that they're there keeping an eye on things. And I have to commend Emma as well. Emma is actually at work today, and in between pause points, working as a pharmacist, she's tuning in because she's such a devoted follower of what we do within this channel and within the Cow Country family. Good morning to Candido Rivera as well. Good morning to Candido Rivera from Orange County, New York. We always love to get New York people, don't we? Emma's from New York originally. Bill O'Rourke is from New York originally. It's always fun to have folks from New York. New York is I lived in New York. Some of you don't know that, but when I was at West Point Military Academy, I was in the Hudson Valley area of New York near Poughkeepsie. And I love New Yorkers. I just love, love, love New Yorkers. I've had a number of New York customers as well, including one that is located right in the Bronx, and I think another one that's in Brooklyn. So yeah, fantastic folks. The other thing you'll notice about Trish's machine, and I'll just point it out real quick, is it's a shuttle type system with one of the earliest versions of the vibrating shuttle. But instead of being from front to back like most shuttle systems, this is actually from side to side, running from the tip of the machine all the way towards the pillar. And these are called a transverse vibrating shuttle system. Transverse vibrating shuttle system. So really a neat feature on this machine, the way the movement works from end to end, if we were able to observe it. So I'm going to very carefully, you've seen how unstable this base is right now until I go through and repair it properly. So I'm going to carefully lift up this 12K. You can see it's a little bit unstable in this base right now, isn't it? And give you just kind of a shot of this machine from the front as well. And I don't see anybody specifically responding to the questions that I posed a little bit ago. So I'm going to give you guys some information as well. I'll push this back a little bit further. You can see more of this machine. There we go. So the one thing I want to do, first of all, is correct the record. There are a number of people that have YouTube channels and work in the VSM space like I do, and they are probably, which I would consider to be an untruth. What some of them are saying about this 12K is that it was the first practical working lock stitch sewing machine ever to be introduced. And that's not entirely true. The first lock stitch machine was actually invented long before this one came on the scene. This one would have come on the scene right around the Civil War time, around 1865. Right around 1865, Singer introduced the 12K, one of the first editions, and they referred to it as the new family sewing machine. And it was an innovation. It was a miraculous innovation of sewing machines at the time. But much earlier than that, again, 1865 is when this would have come on the scene approximately. Much earlier than that, around 1832, almost 3 decades before, Walter Hunt developed a lock stitch style machine. It was different in the way that it operated because it had needle where the eye and the point on the same end carried the upper thread, and then a falling shuttle carrying the lower thread. And it was a curved needle, almost like a fish hook. But it was still a lock stitch machine that came on the scene almost 3 decades before the 12K. And then they also should give credit, and they don't on some of these channels, they should also give credit, obviously, to Elias Howe, who patented the first ever lock stitch machine around 1846. And Elias Howe is oftentimes forgotten because eventually Singer kind of reached into that space and really bought out a lot of these original innovators that developed everything from chain stitch machines to the earliest versions of the lock stitch machine. So I just wanted to give credit in this quick little live stream to Walter Hunt. Walter Hunt really being the one that I was able to find reaching furthest back around 1832. And then also Elias Howe as well from 1846. Because again, this didn't come on the scene until, even if you go with Elias Howe's innovation around 1846, this 12K didn't come on scene until almost 2 decades later, again around 1865, right around the Civil War period. So let me walk you around the machine real quick. I'll also take a quick look. Let me just see if there's anybody else I want to say hello to real quick. I don't think so. I think I've said hello to everybody. If I missed anybody, please forgive me for that. So So also walking around the machine, a fairly simple machine to operate as well. Um, the only tricky thing in the setup of these 12 keys is, oh, I should also show you this from the side, because these were tilt wheels before, and now they're properly, I'll use Christine's trick here. Now they're properly in line, as they should be. And a couple of these parts I was able to, if you saw the Facebook shots, I was able to use high heat to actually reform them into their proper, they were bent enough that I was able to bend them back using high heat. Another one of them was snapped in half, so I had to go ahead and actually find a replacement part for that. I'm totally distracted here. The one thing I was going to point out is the setup on the machine, all in all, is fairly easy. The only tricky part is calibrating the needle position, because you have to, there's not a stop point on this needle position. You can see the needle top right there on this side of the needle bar. See how the needle is positioned there? And then there's a clamping mechanism that holds it into position, but you have to get the needle at the proper height. And the way you do that is on the needle bar itself up here, there's two different etching marks. There's a high etching mark and there's a lower etching mark. What we would do, and we're not going to do it right now because well, actually, I probably could. I'll just turn the hand crank a little bit to get it to that other position. Okay, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but I brought the needle bar up, and it's really hard to see it, but there's a low etching mark on the bottom of this needle bar. Let me do that, kind of the trick thing. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. That lower etching mark, just about 3 millimeters above the faceplate right now. Yeah, that's the one. And then there's a high etching mark at near the top of the needle bar here. So when you're setting this up for sewing, you have to bring that lower etching mark right to the top of the faceplate. And that's the height then that you want to have it at to set the needle. And then you push the needle into position until the eye of the needle is just above the throat plate opening. And then you lock it down into place. There's a set screw on the other side here. So again, you get that lower etching mark just right at the top of the faceplate area. And then you go ahead and push that needle up in the clamp very carefully. What they suggest is taking a really fine needle and basically laying the needle, there wouldn't be any material here, but laying the needle flat on the bed and putting it through the eye of the needle that is going to be operating in the machine, and then bringing that until that eye of the needle is even with the top of the throat plate. And then you screw it into place, and that will give you the sweet spot as far as that needle sweeping down and catching the thread as this transverse vibrating shuttle is moving back and forth. So it's a little bit tricky. When you read the instructions by Singer, they're utterly confounding to me. They were written so poorly. So the simple thing is you rotate your balance wheel until you get that lower etching mark, even with the top of the faceplate. Even with the top of the faceplate. Trying to get this to focus right now. There we go, just about. So that lower etching mark is too high right now. We would rotate it down so it's even with the top of the faceplate. And then we would work that needle up into that little clamp until the eye is just slightly above the top of the throat plate opening. Again, they recommend that you slide another needle with a real fine point into the hole of this needle, and then you can get it to be stable and secure while you're tightening the needle clamp. So hopefully all of that makes sense. But the threading, the needle setting is a little tricky. The threading is real simple. You go from here. Come on, camera. You go from here to this thread guide right here, down through the tension discs right here. You kind of come down and around. You come up to this take-up arm right here and thread it from right to left. You then come down here, and on this particular 12K, there's not a hole that you have to thread the thread through. Thread the thread through. That's a mouthful. There's not a hole that you have to thread the thread to just above the needle. Some of the 12Ks have that. This one is just more of a groove that the thread kind of fits into. And then as you're sewing, it kind of stays in that groove and it guides that thread a little bit as it's being fed. And then finally, you thread this needle from front to back. That's kind of unusual for a Singer machine, isn't it? Most of the Singers get threaded usually from left to right, or in some rare situations, they get threaded from right to left. In this case, you're going to be threading this from front to back when you're setting, once you get the needle set, which is a little bit of a task. And then you want to make sure, as far as the orientation of the needle, this is a 20 by 1 needle, whereas some of the toy machines take a 24 by 1 needle. And most of our sewing machines take a 25 by 1 needle. That's a lot of numbers to throw out at you. But you want to know that this is a 12 by 1 style needle, not a 24 by 1. Some people make the mistake of trying to put 24 by 1s in here because those are the ones that are made for a lot of those toy sewing machines, like the Sew Handy machines. This takes a 12 by 1. And when you set the needle in the needle clamp, you want to make sure that the long groove is facing towards you, which means the scarf, which is that little indentation on the needle that you sometimes see at the very end, just above the point and kind of a little bit above where the eye of the needle would be. You want to have the scarf to the rear, the long groove to the front when you set the needle on this machine. So hopefully all that sort of kind of makes sense. And then over on this side of the machine, I'll just show you real quick. And on some of these 12Ks, they have different bobbin winding assemblies as well. This is pretty consistent on the 12Ks. As you loosen this thumb screw and you slide it to the left, you're going to get a much smaller stitch down around 9. And as you move this to the right, you're going to get a much longer stitch. So that's kind of, this is stitch length control right here. And then this is our bobbin winding assembly. Some of these are going to have one where you rotate it into the balance wheel for winding the bobbin. This one is spring loaded, where when you line that long barbell bobbin in here, you kind of push it to the side. And then the reverse pressure of this spring that's mounted right over here, the reverse pressure of this spring, see if I can get the camera pointing that way. Yeah, you can see it, is going to be pushing this bobbin back against that barbell bobbin so you can wind it. And when you slide that barbell bobbin in it, it then pushes this over so that it's making contact with the balance wheel. Otherwise, it's retracted, and then it can basically spin freely. It's not making contact in any way with the balance wheel and creating drag. And then again, if you want to access the bottom of this machine, which I'm a little bit hesitant to do right now because of how busted this base is, but you just rotate this little release right here, and then you can carefully rotate the machine back. You definitely want to hold it and give it support. And when it's mounted in here, if you look to the back of the machine, there's 3 screws on either side, way in the back there. 3 screws over there, and then 3 screws over here that are going to be mounting it to the base. That's all that's holding it there. And those are really loose right now because when it took a fall down to the ground, it ended up kind of pulling some of these out. So I'll have to do some work on these as well to make sure that they're going to hold the machine securely to the base once I get done repairing the base. You can actually see a separation over here too in the rear of the machine. This big gap right there, that's not supposed to be there. I'll kind of push that back in. There we go. You see how that popped way out? Kind of push on it a little bit. There's a gap right there. There's a gap right there. This is all busted back here where the glue is let loose. So I have to kind of push it in. See that? To kind of push it back in, and then it's seated properly. And what I'll probably do is I'll end up carefully drilling from the side here and putting in an anchor screw that goes from this piece to this piece, and or driving a wooden dowel that's going to go the spans across there to give extra strength to hold these two pieces together on either side. But right now, the base is basically useless as far as securing the machine for carrying it. It supports the machine because it presses down, but that's about it. That's about as good as it gets right now. And yeah, a lot of repair has to be done to these. You can see here again, just moving around a little bit, we've already pulled this apart again. This has already come apart again. So I got to push that back together as well. But it gives you an idea. You have to be real careful when you're transporting machines with antique machines, because that glue eventually will fail. It's inevitable. It's going to fail. All right, let me carefully rotate this machine back down. Push all the sides back together so they're back together decently. Carefully lift her up and bring her a little bit closer to the front again. There we go. We'll stick right around there. That way I can possibly shoot from the front as well. But there's so many glues out there, right? There's so many glues. I've had success in repairing bases using Gorilla Wood Glue. And I don't know, there's so many manufacturers of great glues out there, but this stuff tends to be a little bit stronger when it comes to doing repairs like this. So I'll use a combination of Gorilla Glue, and then also, like I said, maybe porting some holes from one section to another and using some wooden dowels to reinforce those seam or those joining points even more, so that Trish doesn't need to be concerned about the case, the base in particular, failing again and the machine crashing again. I like repeat business, but not repeat business. If I repair the base and then it fails again, that would be horrible. And the wood, all in all, is in good condition. Again, Alex runs a tight ship, and this is something he would not have known. He couldn't have known that it was going to fail like this on Trish. There's just no way. Okay. So let me show you. I didn't show you one other thing. When you're not using this hand crank, you can pull it out and you can rotate it down. Obviously, it'll be to the rear. It'll kind of tuck in on the side over there so that you can put the cover back on. But for our purposes today, I'm going to go ahead and lock it in place. It kind of snaps in there. There's a little pin that allows it to slide past, and then it kind of holds that hand crank in position so you can turn it. And you're going to turn this machine to the rear when you're turning it. We oftentimes, when we're sewists, we're thinking about, you always rotate the balance wheel towards you, right? But in this case, you're going to be turning it to the rear to make that balance wheel turn the opposite way towards you, if that makes sense. All right, so let's just crank off a few stitches. What I have in the setup right now is I've got 2 layers of heavy grade denim, and I'm just going to crank this off real quick so you can see the machine operating and hear the machine operating. I'll even shut my little heater off real quick, so it's real quiet in the workshop, and you can have a chance to see this machine that was broken badly operate. And I changed my camera angle so you can see this needle bar move up and down as well, which is kind of fun. Yeah, that should be pretty good. All right, here we go. Let's just stitch down these 2 layers of heavy grade denim. And when I get to the end, I kind of grab the balance wheel, because if you try to get that needle rotated up in the right spot with a handle, it's a little bit tricky. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this and rotate this around so you can get an initial glimpse of the stitching, which is quite lovely. I'll go ahead and pull this out a little bit. And again, this is a specialty needle that's in the machine. It's, again, a 12 by 1 needle, And it does not have a flat side. There is no flat side, which makes it a little bit more tricky. That's why you have to really make sure once you get the height of the needle set properly, as I described with the etching point that's on the needle bar, and then also get that eye just adjacent where the throat plate opening would be. You've got to be careful as well that you've got the long groove again to the front, and the scarf is going to be to the rear to make sure that you've got the orientation of the needle correctly. But I'll show you these stitches. And again, think about a machine from mid 1800s time frame, right around, I guess it'd be a little bit later, post mid 1800s. But again, the technology was fairly new at this time, and yet the machine stitches very nicely. This is our top stitch right here. Try to get the camera orientated. There we go. We kind of have a shot now. It's our top stitch. So again, that shuttle that's in that transverse channel that's moving from end to end instead of from front to back like most shuttles. That shuttle system is what's defining our top stitch. And we turn it over, that lock stitch is then being defined by that upper tension that I showed you, where you can screw it down to increase or decrease it. Generally, we're getting some really good looking stitching right now with where the tension is set at right now. And I could certainly move this to try to give you a better angle, but you get the idea. You're smart, and you can see that the stitching is looking really, really good. Yeah. And what we'll do now is we'll just stitch off one that's a wee bit shorter than this. We'll get even closer there. There we go. And this is the original needle that Trish sent with the machine. I'll probably order some more needles for her, but I'll check with her first to see if she already has them. Yeah. Should probably get my sew-off holder, but you get the idea. Lovely, lovely stitching. So let me put this back into position again. And what I'll do is we'll change the stitch length, and I'll show you that this machine, even from the 1800s, again, this is an antique machine. It's not a vintage machine. Even this machine from the 1800s is going to have some really, really nice stitch range. So what I do is I just go over to here, make sure that this thumb screw is kind of loose, kind of reach around the camera a little bit. And then you have to kind of slide it to the side. Kind of slide it. I might use 2 fingers because it's a little stiff right now. Actually going to move the camera back right now so I don't bump the camera. I'll hold the base too so I don't break the base. There we go. There we go. It's sat down here in this coal workshop overnight, so it's gotten a little bit stiff now. I'll have to add a little bit more oil to the bottom of it. So what I'm going to do now is I moved it to right around, we were on 3, and I'm moving it right around to 6 right now. I'm going to go ahead and screw that down to kind of put it into place. And now we'll see how that stitch length changes with that adjustment. Oh yeah, you can see the stitching even nicer from this angle now that I'm looking at it. Yeah. So I'll move this back. You can watch me crank it off a little bit as well. It's kind of fun to watch these hand cranks do their thing. And we'll see what stitch length we get with a setting of 6. All right, here we go. Just check my threading. Everything looks like it's as it should be. And we'll go ahead and crank off these next stitches. You can see again, I'm just going to stop real quick. You can see again the take-up arm doing its motion to define that lock stitch, pull that thread taut. Again, this adjuster in the middle, that's part of the needle bar, will determine how far this take-up arm is able to move. When I get to that point, I'll grab the balance wheel so I can control it a little bit better. Oh my goodness, that is teeny tiny. And we're not even at the max of what this 12K can do from a standpoint of the length of the stitch. Let me give that a clip. Move that back. Yeah, it'll be fun to look at the contrast between these two stitch lines. You know what? Let me grab my sew-off holder so that I can have a little bit more control. As a matter of fact, I'll grab Paula's. Paula's has a wonderful vintage theme on it, and that way we can clip it to one of these and take a look at it this way. Yeah, that's our top stitch right there. You kind of clip it in place. All right, coordination test. I'm not doing so well this morning. Let me give it a try here. Okay. So these are our two stitch lines. This is our top stitch. We'll kind of take a look at these. You can look at our first stitch line on the top there. Actually, you can look at both of them at the same time because the material is not that long. So we've got some beautiful, in my opinion, we've got some beautiful page 34 stitching, both with the larger stitch on top. And I'm just kind of scanning it with my eyes real quick. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably that top row we're looking at about eight stitches per inch approximately. And then on the lower one, we're probably looking at about 12 to 14 stitches per inch. Yeah, beautiful stitching. Again, that's our top stitch. So the top stitch, we have to give credit to that transverse vibrating shuttle for doing the work on this stitch. Now, if we turn it over, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that lock stitch now. And we'll see what we think of that one. Yeah, all in all, it looks really good. I might make a little bit of an adjustment on it, but all in all, it's looking pretty doggone good. Let me hold that real still. And again, I can't speak to how sharp this needle is I'm using right now. I'm using the one that Trish sent with the machine, and I don't know how much sewing she did on it. So certainly we could even define this even with greater clarity with a nice sharp needle. Again, a 12 by 1 needle is what we would use. But all in all, I'm very, very pleased with the quality of the stitching. And when I'm looking at this lower roll where we did a much shorter stitch, I'm almost seeing that the upper tension might be a little bit high right now on the machine because it's kind of, see how it's making those stitches a little bit stubby? It's kind of pulling them too tight. So that would be a simple adjustment of, oh, there we go. I had it too low. That would be a simple adjustment of this control on the machine right here. This one right now, I've got it turned quite a ways clockwise down. I would just turn it counterclockwise and back it off a little bit so that it would give a little bit more power to the top stitch and take a little bit more away from this lock stitch, because right now it's almost pulling that thread a little bit too tight. But again, a machine from the 1860s time frame, sewing through 2 layers of heavy grade denim. Not bad. I think it's actually quite good. Quite good. Okay, so let me move that. Let's see, set that back over here. And then what I have set up, and I haven't tested it yet. Well, actually, I'll do 2 things for you. One, I did do some testing before on doing 2 layers of 100% cotton. 2 layers of 100% cotton. It's kind of a raspberry color. And I stitched down that off camera, no stiffener, no quilt batting or anything like that in between, just 2 thin pieces of 100% cotton. So we'll do that again right now on camera so you can see that. And then we'll do two layers of 100% cotton with a stiffener so we can see how the machine is able to handle that. And again, if we go to a little bit thicker materials and we're concerned about feed, if we go to thicker materials and we're concerned about feed, we can turn this control over here down clockwise. And the further we turn this clockwise, the more presser foot pressure we're going to have. I think right now, more than enough for what we're doing. And if we sew something really light, we can turn it counterclockwise and take away some of that presser foot pressure. So all in all, I think we've got a pretty good balance right now. All right, so let's crank this off. Give a listen to the machine, and we'll see how it handles, again, 2 layers of 100% cotton, and let's give her a go. Oh, I totally forgot. I've got the stitch length set real short right now. I'm going to go to a longer stitch again. So I'm just going to loosen this little thumb screw, and then I'm going to slide this back over. It's actually sliding around in the base because the base is kind of in bad shape. Okay, so I've got the longer stitch on now. All right, let's give this a go again. Here we go. Okay. Oh yeah, very nice. Very, very nice. Kind of pull that out. Give that a clip. Slide that to the rear. Yeah, I'm actually seeing a little bit of a weaker top stitch than I'd like to be seeing. And the lock stitch is looking a little bit too strong. I'll show you what I mean. Kind of hold it in front of the camera. Actually, I'll do this. Maybe this is actually going to be easier when I laid it down before. Yeah, that's kind of hard to see. It's getting a little bit of a reflection off of there. I'll kind of hold it like this. So this is a stitch line that we just did on the far right. And all in all, it's pretty good. We especially start out a little bit better here, but it lacks a little bit of emphasis, which means that our upper tension is probably a little bit too high. Let me get that stitch off holder again. I'm getting a lot of light reflection here. Hold on just a second. Actually, we'll attach it up there. That'll be easier. There we go. So these are the different rows that I had done off camera. The one right above where I had not bumped up that upper tension, and we had a much nicer defined top stitch there. It's got a lot more poppiness to it. Here I had increased that upper tension a little bit more to try to get better definition on the lock stitch. I think I went too far. I went too far because when you look at the definition and the clarity of the stitch on this last row we just did, and then you compare it to this row that I did off camera just above it, there clearly is a difference. And this can be corrected very easily by backing off the upper tension just slightly so that that vibrating shuttle, that transverse vibrating shuttle, can pull down and define this stitch a little bit more. All in all, it's not a bad stitch, but it could be better. It could definitely be better. Kind of hold the camera there real steady. Yeah. So if I were going to be sewing a ton of 2 layers of cotton with no stiffener, no quilt batting, I would want to back off that upper tension just slightly. And I would do that by just taking this control right here and turning it counterclockwise. I'll actually turn it counterclockwise a little bit right now. Just kind of backed it off a little bit. I turned it a little bit that way. And again, if you could see the inside, or if you saw the inside of the Facebook shots that I showed you, there's a metal band that runs between here. And as you screw this down, this piece right here has a really sharp point on it, and it pushes and it fluxes that metal band that then creates more pressure down on these discs to increase the upper tension. So it's not quite as accurate as some of the newer upper tension units, but it generally does a very good job. So we just made a slight adjustment there. So if we do another stitch line, we should see a little bit better clarity on this top stitch. Again, it's not bad, but it could be better. So let's turn it over now and look at the lock stitch. And you're going to see that the lock stitch is really, really poppy because I had that upper tension turned up a little bit too high. So it's going to be a really, really good looking lock stitch. Let me move this closer to the camera. Having trouble seeing. Is that, I think that's focusing. Yeah, it's generally focusing pretty well. I don't think it's a big fan of this material color. So you can see kind of why I did what I did. As we look at this, these stitching on these two lines, the lock stitch on this upper row right here was a little bit less defined than I would want to see it. This camera's, okay, come on, buddy. We'll go right to there. So that second row up was a little bit less defined than I wanted as far as the lock stitch. So that's when I increased the upper tension, went too far, gave it a great result, but then I took away from that top stitch. So that's the balancing act that you have when you're adjusting tensions, is if your top stitch is a little bit undefined and you're wanting to take away some of that lock stitch authority to make that top stitch more defined, just make sure you don't adjust it too far because you can take away from the other one. Yeah, this camera is really struggling today, isn't it? This camera is not liking this raspberry color. It's going, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Kind of look at it like this too. Maybe it'll help the camera a little bit. And the other thing with the tensions on this 12K is depending on the material you're sewing, this machine is a little bit more sensitive to adjusting tension as well, depending on the material and the type of thread you're using as well. The thread I'm using right now up top is a standard Coates & Clark dual duty XP style thread. We'll turn it around and we'll look at the other side because let me just... I was going to turn this around and show you the other side. Isn't it great? Oh, you can tell my mind is like, oh, I got to watch my time so I'm not late to getting to the airport. I don't want to be late to the airport. But I guess it's a little bit more lax now that they're not requiring that you. So this is our top stitch again. I'm going to show it to you. I think it'll probably be a little bit easier to see facing this direction, maybe. But you can see again, if you're looking at those rows on the far right is the last row we did. not as poppy as it should be. I think I'm going to stitch down it one more time to see if by adjusting that upper tension, we can get that to pop back a little bit more. So I'm not going to belabor this anymore. We're just going to stitch down it again and see if we can give a little bit more authority back to, that top stitch. All right. Oops. All right, so we'll put this in position one more time. And again, I did adjust the upper tension slightly. I might adjust it just a little bit more. Put this back down. So again, I'm going to turn this counterclockwise just a little bit to take a little bit more away. There we go. I'm going to stop there. I don't want to go too far. Otherwise, we'll lose our lock stitch. Okay, so let's give this a try again just to see what impact we can bring to that top stitch line to give it a little bit more poppiness. All right, here we go. Oh, wow. Yeah, we just barely made adjustments on this. And already we're starting to get the clarity of that top stitch much more than we did before. The only concern is, will we lose that lock stitch? Again, we don't have a lot of material here for that knot to be centered. We only have two thin little layers of 100% cotton. So the knot has to, I mean, you just have to get it spot on to have a really good balance. But I think we're going to be pretty close. We're going to be pretty close this time. Again, these 12Ks are a little bit sensitive when it comes to adjusting tension depending on the thread. See that static? Isn't that horrible? Depending on the thread you're using and depending on the materials that you're sewing, they can be a little bit more of a pickle as far as getting a good stitch balance. But just with that subtle little adjustment, we were able to bring a lot of that clarity of stitch back. Let me grab this stitch off holder one more time. Actually, that didn't work too well the last time because of the lighting. We'll just hold it like this, and you can kind of take a look at the two. The bottom row is the one we just did. The one above it is where I said it wasn't as poppy as it could be. Let's try there. So you see the impact that we brought? I'm trying to show you the impact right now with this poor lighting. Just with that very subtle adjustment of our upper tension using that band spring on the inside, where we didn't have as much definition with that top stitch. Now, all of a sudden, I'll turn it like this as well so you can look at it that way. Now, all of a sudden, we're starting to get that definition back to that top stitch again. If you look at the two rows side by side, but it's a real sensitive adjustment. It's a real sensitive adjustment as you're trying to go back and forth between those two to try to get the right stitch definition. There we've got some really good clarity as far as the camera. The camera is happy right now. But if you look at the two rows, we've got just a little bit more poppiness coming back now with that adjustment of the upper tension. So while it's a primitive approach by standards, it's a primitive approach using basically a metal band that you're pushing a screw against to flux that band to try to give you better definition. It actually works quite well. It actually works quite well all in all. We turn it around. Let's look at that lock stitch. Hopefully we didn't take all of our gusto away from the lock stitch. That's my biggest concern. And all in all, it's still pretty good, but I might have taken just a little bit away. If you notice, periodically, there's a little bit of a tilt to the stitch. The stitch looks like it's a little bit tilted. That's when there's not quite enough upper tension. So I turned it like about 1.5 turns. I probably should have only turned it 1 turn. And then we would have had a much better top stitch and a much better lock stitch as well. It's a little bit tricky to get that balance. It's tricky to get that even on vintage machines, let alone antique machines that use a totally different upper tension mechanism design. So I'm much happier with that second row up as far as the lock stitch because I took a little bit too much away when I made that adjustment to give us a better top stitch. There's our top stitch on the top row right there. Much nicer. And again, our needle is not top notch right now. I'd love to have a fresh needle in here. And I'll do that when I do a full blown premiere of this machine. If I do that when I get back from my trip. But all in all, really quite nice. All right, let me throw this to the side. This again is going to be our 2 layers of 100% cotton. Now we're going to see how this machine reacts when I do the 2 layers of cotton, but I add this stiffener that I like using. We're going to add this stiffener now, which will act almost like a quilt batting. And we'll see how the machine does in defining stitch and managing stitch tensions when we're going through a material like this that's going to have a little bit more thickness factor to go through. So let's check this one out, see what we think. All right, get that into place. And I'm not going to make any changes up here right now. I'll go ahead and, because we're dealing with a little bit thicker material, I'll go ahead and leave it the way it is as far as having a little bit stronger upper tension than I might necessarily want. We'll leave it like that, and we'll see if we're going to make any fine adjustments. Presser foot pressure, we'll leave that alone for right now. And let's crank this off and see what we think of this sew off. Again, we're going to be just about at the max stitch length on this 12K. Okay. Oh yeah, that's quite spectacular. That's quite spectacular. Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that we're winning the battle on the top stitch now, but we might have a little bit more of a challenge with that lock stitch. We might have to increase the tension on this. And again, these 12Ks are really sensitive when it comes to the thread types you're using and the materials that you're using as well. But I'll give you a look at these stitches and see what you think of this. Again, 2 layers of cotton, and we're looking at, move it right over to there. 2 layers of cotton and a stiffener in between. This is going to be our top stitch. See if I can get even closer. So all in all, some good looking stitching, but again, with this machine being a little bit on the sensitive side to thread types and tensions, etc. Let me move that over. Well, being a little bit sensitive to thread types and the material types we're using. Yeah, that's actually much clearer, isn't it? Much clearer. Yeah, it's a lovely top stitch, but it's almost a little bit too defined, which means when I flip it over, we're probably going to see a little bit of a weaker lock stitch. It's not going to be a bad lock stitch, but it's going to be a little bit weaker. This is our lock stitch here. me turn it like this, see if that helps the camera just a wee bit. Yeah. So a decent looking lock stitch, a decent looking top stitch. I think all in all, we've got good balance, but we could always make it better, couldn't we? Could always make it better. Again, what you're looking at right now is the lock stitch. Top stitch. So I'm really quite pleased. And when you give that, when you have a little bit of a thicker material that you're sewing, it gives you a better visibility of that stitch because that knot has a little bit more space to be positioned in, doesn't it? When you're dealing with the two thin layers of 100% cotton and you've got little or no space for that knot to be positioned, you don't get quite the clarity of stitch. Here you've got a very, very nice clarity of stitch with this top stitch and also with this lock stitch as well. Lovely, lovely stitching. So, this antique machine from the 1800s is doing quite well in managing stitch quality. Um, it didn't quite sew like this when it came in the workshop. I'll leave the rest of this alone for now. And I think I've got a little bit of, let me see, I've got some other materials that I wanted to try just to say that we tried them. The other material I wanted to show you real quick. Let's see here. I'm debating. This is where, again, I'll run into a problem with presser foot pressure probably. I'll probably run into a problem with presser foot pressure with this elk hide. Who thinks I should give this elk hide a try? Since I'm leaving today anyway and I'll have time to order needles if I bust the needle. But this is probably going to be, see if I can do it like that, help the camera out. It's probably going to be about 3 to 4, well, probably about 2 to 3 millimeters, about 5 ounces of leather, genuine elk hide. Who thinks I should try stitching this? Who thinks I should try stitching this elk hide with this 1800 12K that I just got done repairing and taking through major surgery for Trish? Anyone think I should try this? Or should I try the saddle grade leather? This is saddle grade leather right here. Or protected full grain leather. Could try this as well. Paula's saying go for it. She's saying go for it because it's not her 12K. Oh, we love you, Paula. Go for it. Yeah. All right. We'll try stitching down a little bit of genuine elk hide and see how this 12K from the 1800s does with this. Again, I'm a little bit leery about the needle because I didn't replace the needle. This is one that Trish sent it with. If I break the needle, then this live stream will pretty much be over with at that point because I have no other 12x1 needles in the workshop right now. I had that antique 12K. If you remember, several contests ago, Mary Klein wrote a beautiful ring piece, and it was based in Kissimmee, Florida. And oh, I know the machine can handle it, Paula. You're absolutely right. And my leaders have a lot of confidence in me. I've got a lot of experience. I've proven myself, and they follow me with a great degree of confidence. And they reach out to me with questions regularly as well, which I'm always honored to be a part of helping them find solutions and find answers. The only thing I'm questioning is not the machine that I've repaired after that horrific fall. I'm questioning the needle. So we'll see how the needle does. The needle is a 90-14. It is a 90-14, so it's not a thin little, size 70 or size 80 needle. like I broke in a recent live stream. It's a size 90 needle, but it's not quite as sharp as it should be. So I'll give it a go and we'll see how it does in managing this sew off as well. Let me just raise the camera a little bit. You know what? I've been doing the same shot. You've seen me turning it. You know that I know how to turn the hand crank. Yay. Let's get a little bit closer and see the stitches being laid down like that. Yeah. That way, if the needle breaks, you'll be able to see the needle break straight away and you'll be like, hey, I saw it. I saw the needle break. So, all right, let's give it a go. This is genuine elk hide, and we're trying to crank off some stitching going down this genuine elk hide. Blah. We'll try stitching down this genuine elk hide using this transverse shuttle system, and we'll see how it manages it. Again, we're dealing with a machine that was designed as the new family type sewing machine. And the majority of sewists back then would never, ever have considered sewing elk hide. They never would have considered sewing saddle grade leather. They never, ever would have considered sewing protected full grain leather, partly because it probably wasn't invented back then. I don't know when protected full grain leather actually came on the scene, because it's a special leather that has a coating on it to protect it from staining, probably much after the 1800s. But if they had had it, they probably would not have sewn it. They would have been sewing cotton. They would have been sewing other materials similar to that. Definitely not leathers. So we're going against the grain, no pun intended. We'll see how this machine handles it. And keep your fingers crossed we don't break the needle. That's my biggest concern. Let's not break the needle. Oh, Paula's getting sassy. She said, I painted myself into a corner. I don't know if I can throw a moderator into a timeout or not. I'll have to see if I can do that just for fun. Nope. I can remove a moderator. I'm cursing over. I'm putting a cursor over Paula's name right now. I can remove a moderator. Oh, I can put a. Wait a second. I'm mistaken. I read a little bit further up. I can actually put Paula into timeout for being such a crackerjack wiseacre in the live stream. But I won't do that to Paula. I won't put Paula in a timeout because I like her sassiness. Her sassiness is actually fun. All right, let's crank this off and see how we do. Hopefully we don't break this needle. All right, here we go. And look at the side right here as far as the thickness of that leather. I'm going to kind of turn the camera sideways a little bit so you can look at the thickness of the leather that we just went through. Again, the sewists back in the 1800s having a machine like this would never have probably considered sewing leather. I don't even know if they had the appropriate needle technology back then to do it. But the point is, we've just done something that probably most people that have a 12K are not going to be doing. They're not going to be stitching down genuine elk hide. I don't think they will be. All right, let me give that a clip. Move that to the back. Static electricity is just a booger when you are in the Midwest and it starts to go in the wintertime. Okay, so on this 12K from the 1800s, we just buzzed down this genuine elk hide. Let me see if I can get the camera angled correctly so we can take a look at this. Let me turn it like this. So this is going to be our top stitch. I don't know what you guys are seeing, you guys and gals, but I'm seeing some beautiful, beautiful stitching. Even with a needle that is kind of an unknown commodity right now. Some beautiful, beautiful stitching through some genuine elk hide. I'd love to have a sharp needle right now and see if I could do 2 layers. That would be a hoot if I could do 2 layers. But all in all, just a beautiful job. A beautiful job on this top stitch. I wonder what we're gonna see as far as the lock stitch, and it'll be a little bit hard to see it because of the nap. Be a little bit hard to see it as far as the nap. But again, our upper tension is doing an excellent job all in all of managing, the stitch quality here. Kinda pull it back a little bit. Let some of those stitches kind of pop through. So again, not an easy sew off. Kind of turn it this way as well so you can see the thickness of that. Not an easy sew off at all. And this 12K just went through it very, very easily. And that's the cool thing. That's the cool thing about a hand crank is hand cranks, kind of like the treadle machines. Hand cranks and treadle machines are surprisingly strong when it comes to being able to go through some ridiculous thicknesses. Some ridiculous thicknesses. So now I'm kind of excited now that it did so well and had some beautiful stitching on genuine elk hide. How will it do on protected full grain leather? A type of leather that in all likelihood would not even have been around back in the 1800s. They wouldn't even have had a choice of stitching it because it probably was not even available at that time. No idea when they developed it. If someone wants to Google when they developed protected full grain leather, that would be cool. So we know the answer to that. All right. We'll try stitching down this protected full grain leather as well, just to see how this machine does. And again, if we break the needle, well, then we are going to be done. We're going to be done with this live stream. Oh, Paula, you're right. I did misread that. I did misread that. My apologies. I thought Paula does get sassy sometimes in live streams, and I thought she was being sassy about her comment, but she was actually making a statement of affirmation. And so I did misread that. I should probably just give up on trying to do all of this over here and read the live stream at the same time, but I'm really determined to try to do it. And yet sometimes I'll goof up. So yeah, Paul is right. I did misread that and I apologize. But I was curious anyway if you all of a sudden had a moderator that went rogue, what authority do I have as the administrator of the channel, where I would be able to mitigate that? So, at any rate, I know now. I know now. So, yeah. Robin is coming to Paula's defense. Paula, you do a great job. Scott's not going to throw you in timeout. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get this reputation all of a sudden of being this ogre when I'm the nicest guy on the earth. So, all right, let's crank off this protected full grain leather now and see if this 12K does as well in managing this. Again, we're not making any changes. We're not making any changes to the upper tension. We're not making any changes to the presser foot pressure. We're just going to stitch this off. It managed the elk hide quite well, and we'll see now if it manages. See, she is being sassy there. I'll return my paycheck. Your paycheck is to be a part of this family as a leader. That's quite a bit of pay. I don't choose my leaders casually. I don't choose my leaders casually. So Paula and the other leaders, they can consider themselves the cream of the crop being on my team. So, okay, so let me crank off now on this protected full grain leather, and we'll see how it manages that. Robin, calm down. It's okay. My moderators know that I love them. And yes, they are very nice people. They are very nice people. Absolutely. Robin is an advocate. If anyone messes with any of you, Robin's going to be there on the front lines coming to your defense, which is totally cool. All right, so let me crank off on this protected full grain leather now. We'll see if it manages this as well as the elk hide. All right, here we go. I should probably let me give you a little bit more of a distance shot so you can see the machine working too. I think that's really cool to watch. And then we'll look at the stitch quality along with that. All right, here we go. And I can feel as I'm turning this, I can feel that there's a lot more resistance on this protected full grain leather. In other words, the needle is having more trouble getting through it because, again, they treat this protected full grain leather with a special chemical to make it more resilient, to make it more resistant to staining and more durable. And so as I'm turning it, and I can feel the resistance of that needle trying to pierce that material. So we'll see how the machine manages it. And I'm not saying it's ridiculously hard to turn it. I can just feel the difference between this and the elk hide. There we go. Okay, so I pulled that out. Now let's take a look at this one, see what we think. Yeah, for the longest time, in support of Robin's spirit of advocacy for Paula, as I was razzing back Paula and saying, I wonder if I can throw Paula into timeout because I made her a moderator. You know, is she immune from being thrown into a timeout? The answer is I can throw moderators into timeout as well. I don't know if moderators can throw other moderators into timeout. Paula, do me a favor. I'm just curious about the YouTube setup. If you mouse over with your cursor, if you mouse over like Emma, does it give you an option to put her in a timeout? I'm just curious if the moderators, they can do that to other folks that are in the live stream. They can put them in a timeout. They can delete their comments and other things like that. Well, thank you, Paula. That's a very sweet compliment. My expertise is priceless. I'm still learning too, and I think that's why people love this channel and they love being a part of our family. They love being a part of these live streams. They love being a part of the leadership team as well because they're in that inner circle. Oh, wow. So a moderator can block another moderator. So if I'm distracted over here and not reading the live stream, which I should probably start doing because my moderators have it covered. Paula and Emma and others and Sunny and Veronica and Michelle and Christine. I have absolute confidence in them in managing all that happens over there on that side of the house. But I didn't realize that a moderator can also potentially take action against another moderator as well. So YouTube designed this platform. I didn't design it. So they have a lot of safeguards in place to try to be able to manage live streams and also manage videos as well. So that's kind of cool. All right. So all of that blah, blah, blahing, let me turn it this way and give you a look at the stitching on this protected full grain leather. So this is our top stitch right here. I'll turn it like this first of all. Some beautiful, beautiful top stitching. Quite extraordinary. Quite extraordinary. And again, I don't know the condition of this needle right now. This needle might be on its last leg. Kind of like the base of this sewing machine is on its last leg right now until I go through and do all the repairs on the base like I just did to the machine. There we go again. It's starting to say, I don't want to focus on that. I don't want to focus. The camera's saying, what are you even doing this for, Scott? You should be getting ready to go on the plane, man. All right. See if it's happy now. So I'm really pleased with this top stitch. Could it be better? Yes. And we could make it better by using a sharp needle and by certainly making a couple of other adjustments to the machine. But all in all, a beautiful top stitch through protected full grain leather. And again, I would say convincingly that this machine was not designed originally with the idea of sewing leather like this. I just don't think it was. Look at the side of that. You can see the thickness of this protected full grain leather. And if we turn it over the rest of the way, let's look at that lock stitch, see what we think. Get really, really close. Folks, those are page 34 lock stitches. And it just goes to show, a lot of people will argue going through leather like this is the most difficult task. It's really going to push this machine to the ultimate limit. I think that that's true, but I think also sewing the light stuff can also push a machine to a very, very difficult limit as well. There we go. The camera is sort of kind of there we go. Now it's very, very happy. It's saying, "Okay, I'm there. I'm here." So folks, those are page 34, maybe even page 34 plus lock stitches through this protected full grain leather. I'm very, very pleased with that. Not an easy sew off, certainly not an easy sew off for a machine from the 1800s that has a tiring needle. But it laid down a beautiful lock stitch, laid down a beautiful top stitch as well. You can see that right now in the shot very clearly. And I'm going to give that a passing grade, a big passing grade. That's awesome. Okay. So the last sew off that I could potentially do right now, because I think I've demonstrated, wait a second, maybe I didn't. I was going to say I demonstrated, hey, you guys, help me out here, because my mind is like in two different worlds right now. My mind is on showing you this 12K that I just took through surgery, just repaired it after taking a horrific fall. But I'm also focused as well on the fact that I've got to watch my time so I can get to the airport on time and get to Florida so I can do appraisals on these machines for this auction house. So I'm kind of divided right now. And so, but did I already on this live stream, did I already sew this denim on the live stream? I know I did 100% cotton, no stiffener. Then I did stiffener. Then I did elk hide. I did protected full grain leather. I have not done saddle grade leather yet, but did I already sew the denim? I think I did. Yeah, I did. Now that I'm thinking about it, I did the denim because I talked about the 2 layers. Okay, that's Joe. And thank you. Yeah, my mind is just, you know how when you're thinking about something and you're doing something at the same time? Right now I'm doing this, but at the same time I'm thinking I better watch my time. I better watch my time because I have to leave for the airport in less than an hour and I still have to do all the packing and everything, get ready for that. So I've already done the denim, so I can throw that to the side. So far, and thank you to everybody in memory. So far, I've done the denim, I've done the 100% cotton with no stiffener. I've done the 100% cotton with the stiffener. I've done the protected full grain leather, and I've done the elk hide. So now the last sew off I'm going to do before we wrap up this live stream is I'm going to try to do some saddle grade leather. And saddle grade leather, again, is a type of leather that typically is used. Oh, this is our sew off sandwich for the live stream. I didn't plan on doing all this. I just had it set up in case. But, you get into a rhythm and you're like, yeah, the machine is doing so. I want to give this machine a chance. to show its stuff. And then Trish will see this and she'll get really excited because she was really, really concerned that this machine might not be able to get repaired. And yes, it's a happy machine. Still not a happy base yet, but I'll take care of the base as well. And that way the whole ensemble will be done. So, but let's get back to saddle gray leather that they use to make gun holsters. They use it to make different things for horses. It's like really kind of the cat's meow when it comes to uh, a leather that you can sew with a sewing machine. And we're going to try to do it now on this 1800 12K that belongs to Trish Rabine out of the great state of Virginia. And hopefully we've had incredible success through this entire live stream with this machine that, you know, who knows what, if it had gone somewhere else, who knows, maybe that person would have said to Trish, it's not repairable. You dropped it 3 feet onto concrete, bent all of this stuff up here. You probably also caused internal damage as well. Get another 12K. But thankfully, she talked to Alex Askeroff, and Alex said, send it to Scott. He knows he's the best guy for the job. And so I'm really grateful I had that opportunity to show even a machine that in some people's workshops would be hopeless. They'd be like, nope, I'm not going to take this on. It's not repairable. We were able to do it. And then we're able to celebrate it through a little mini live stream like this and see this machine do its dance. So that is way, way, way cool. Way cool. Mermaid or Rogue Moderator sounds like a cool username. I have really lit a fire here. And let me say this confidently. I'm actually going to come into the camera shot because you've been looking at this beautiful machine, which is awesome. That's what it's about. But I'll come into the shot as well and just say that the little playful bantering that Paula and I just did, where she was playfully pushing back and I was playfully pushing back on her as well. It's really a sign of affection. It's a sign of affection. And I would do the same thing with Emma or Christine or Sunny or any other leadership team members or with Bill. Matter of fact, off camera, I did a playful pushback on Bill the other day when I talked to him about that special live stream I was doing where that bird was going to come into the workshop and was going to be doing tricks. And I know that Bill is a bird lover. So I sent a note to Bill and I told him about that live stream. And he sent back a quick little emoji GIF or whatever it was, a GIF thing. And it was basically saying, I never miss an exciting opportunity. So I couldn't help myself. And Bill will tell you that I did this. So I sent back to him, I said, well, all of my live streams, Bill, are exciting opportunities. So you should be at every one of them. And he sent back a thumbs up, after that. So I playfully get into a bantering with all of my leadership team because I have such a respect and such an affection for them. And I know that they're not going to recoil. Paula or Emma or any of the leaders, they're not recoil people. They are attack people. And, they don't retreat, they advance. So it's always fun to have a little bit of playfulness, whether it's on camera, off camera, through a text, through a Facebook Messenger message. But to reinforce Robin's advocacy, if we were ever in a live stream and a couple of times, Paula and some of the other moderators have had to step in if someone writes a comment that's unkind or they start, doing things that are not appropriate for our setting, they're action-oriented people. But if for some reason there was someone in a live stream that went after one of the moderators, let's say that they threw them in a timeout and then they came back on and they were being belligerent or, being less than kind to one of the moderators, tell you one thing, I'd be the first one to grab my little cursor and click and not just delete their comment, but block them from the channel. So I'm very protective of my leaders. They know that. And it's fun to get into a playful banter with sometimes with them and push on them and they push back and I push and they push. And some of you being kind-hearted folks as well will step in and say, be nice to each other. Don't push. And what you don't realize, it's like two siblings that would kill for the other sibling, but they also get into these little tussles pushing on each other a little bit as well. So I wanted to explain that so no one thinks, Scott is being unkind to Paula. There could be nothing further from the truth. Uh, I'm very, very, how would I say it? Respectful and very, very appreciative of Paula and all of the moderators on the channel. I truly am. And the same thing is true of the ones that work with me on the Facebook side as well. So I wanted to emphasize that. So, all right. So let's do this last sew off now on this saddle grade leather. Try to turn it like this so you can see the cranking as well. And then I'm going to get ready for the airport so that I'm not late. Okay, let's give this a go. You can watch all of the machines. There we go. Now you can watch all the machines' functions. All right, here we go. Saddle grade leather on a machine from the 1800s, a Singer 12K, known as the new family sewing machine that Singer introduced, which is how they referred to it, by the way. If you didn't know this, they referred to it as the new family sewing machine long before they referred to it as the Singer 12K. It started with that, and then it migrated into them calling it the 12K sewing machine. So if you didn't know that, you learned something new, which is cool. All right, let me crank this off. Keep your fingers crossed. The needle has been holding out, and hopefully we get down this last sew off of this saddle grade leather, and we can see it lay down some more nice stitching. All right. I get to that point, I get a little bit nervous, so I kind of turn it by hand. There we go. All right. Oh my goodness. Wow. 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 So if you're on any other channels, or if you're on Facebook, or you're on Etsy, or you're anywhere else out there, and someone has a 12K and they say the 12K is not capable, and it goes back to what Paula said, should you versus can you, or something along those lines. I always say when I take my machines that come into the workshop through my process, when I take my machines through the process, the workshop magic, what other people have considered to be impossible becomes possible. I remember the first time I went through 3 layers of leather, the equivalency of probably 2 thick belts with a 1591. And I got so many messages, this is going several years back, of people that's, wanted to know how was that possible? They had taken their machine in for service, they had serviced the machine themselves, whatever. And their machine couldn't even get close to sewing that. And it just points back to, again, it's the process, it's the preparation. I have no doubt at all that when this machine was in Alex Askaroff's workshop, and all of you had a chance to see his workshop when I did the interview with him. Remember that? We went in, we had a little clip, and I shared a little clip of going into his workshop, and he kind of walked us around and showed us the different layout of his little workshop, which I thought was really cool. But when this machine was being prepped in his workshop, he's like-minded like I am. He is passionate about vintage sewing machines, and especially antique sewing machines as well. And he would have taken this machine through a very, very intense process. Mine is a little bit different than his, but they're both great processes. So, but even coming out of Alex's workshop, I'm quite confident that he did not test it with any type of leather. As a matter of fact, if this piece over here, I didn't ask Trish if this may be the original piece that Alex sent underneath the presser foot when he shipped the machine to her a number of years ago. But this is some sort of a woolen woven type material. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's got it feels like a woven material, almost. And this is what Alex probably would have stitched off to test the machine before it left his workshop. My approach is different, and that's okay. my service process, my service regimen on the machines is a little bit different. I would argue, and I think that Alex and Andy Tube and other great restorers out there would agree. I go a little bit deeper than some of these gentlemen and some of these ladies that are doing restorative work as well. It's just a passion of mine. I like things to be tidy. I like things to be as clean as a whistle. And so I dig into the machines very, very deep to make sure that every little edge, and I didn't do it to embarrass Alex. Don't even think that for a second. I love Alex. I love his wife, Yana, as well. They're beautiful people, and I hope to meet them face to face someday. And I did get that invite, by the way, to come to England and meet them. But when I'll do that, I don't know. But even when I went into these faceplate regions over here, and I was servicing and I was adjusting some of the parts, you can see the varnishing on there. You can see the varnishing on other parts of the machines, and that's not a focal point for Alex, and that's okay, because that's a passion point of mine. I like all that varnishing and all that other gook and sticky junk that gets stuck to our vintage machines on the inside. I'm almost a little bit of I almost said AC/DC, but that's a band, right? AC/DC is a band. What word am I looking for? Where you're just fixated on details. That's kind of the way I'm wired. And so I went through there and I polished up a lot of those things, got all of that gook off of those moving parts to get them even more mobility as they're operating. So, but anyway, our final sew off that we just did. Let me show it to you. Let me show it to you as I ramble on and I look. You can't see me off camera. I keep looking at my watch like, oh my gosh, it's getting late. It's getting late. I got to get going. I got to hurry up. All right, so we're going to look at this one first. Let's turn it like this. This is going to be our saddle grade leather that we just did on Trish's 12K. There we go. Thank you, camera. Thank you, camera. Folks, those are absolutely unequivocally page 34 plus stitches. That transverse vibrating shuttle type setup is doing a brilliant job of pulling down to define this top stitch. I don't know how I could make this better other than perhaps putting a fresh needle in would definitely help, since this needle has gotten one heck of a workout by now. And also, as I'm looking at it under a lot of scrutiny, like I like to do, I'm also seeing that all in all, the stitches are in beautiful alignment. They're presenting very, very well. And especially as I pull the material a little bit more taut, I was kind of loosey-goosey there. As I'm pulling it taut, we're getting some really, really beautiful stitch presentation. Some lovely, lovely stitches with this 12K that was not able to stitch when it came to the workshop after that fall. And now she's just sewing up a storm, even on saddle gray leather like this. But once in a while, if you see a little bit of just a subtle little, if you look at it real close, you see a subtle little tilt to a stitch. That's an indication that transverse vibrating shuttle below is not pulling down quite hard enough. So this is where we would take our upper tension, this right here. We would take our upper tension control right here, and we would say, our top stitch is good. It's quite good. It's quite lovely. It's a lovely, lovely top stitch, but we can make it better by backing this off a little bit. When we back it off a little bit, then that special shuttle system down here can pull down just a little bit harder so that the stitches are in perfect alignment. They're nearly perfect right now. They're quite fantastic. But we're always looking to make things better on this channel, aren't we? We're always looking at it going, it's near perfect. It's not perfect. It's near perfect. It's near perfect. While other folks might look at this stitch line and go, holy Jiminy Crickets, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. We look at it with our trained eyes as students and fellow teachers. We look at it as students and fellow teachers and say, it's really quite exceptional. It's really quite phenomenal. But we can make it better. We can make it better. And we don't apologize for that we can make it better. That's part of our standard. That's part of our constant and never-ending improvement, isn't it? Yeah, part of our constant and never-ending improvement. We're always looking to make things better. There, I almost got it straight. If I turn it over, what are we going to see? And as I turn it over, I'll also say, look at the thickness of the leather that we just sewed. The saddle grade leather. Let me do Christine's trick here. Probably about 3 ounces of leather. We turn it over. We've got a beautiful lock stitch as well. A beautiful, beautiful lock stitch. Again, it's going to be masked a little bit by the nap of the leather. But all in all, quite nice, quite nice. It'd even be better if we put a fresh needle in there, because then it's going to be able to cut through that leather more accurately. And if you didn't know it, a leather needle has a totally different point on it. It's got almost like a cutting blade, where we would look at a point on a needle and say, well, that's really sharp. I don't want to get poked by that. The end of the point on a leather needle has almost like a serrated edge for cutting through the leather, not just poking through it, but cutting through it. So if we added a leather needle to this 12K, that would even do the job better. But all in all, a lovely job for this 12K that, again, back in the day, would not have necessarily been thought to be the machine to use for stitching. They would have thought of going to a cobbler machine or a leather-specific sewing machine once those were on the scene, not using a 12K for this purpose. So I hope you enjoyed this. I was talking with Emma late last night and with Paula a little bit earlier, and I didn't share specifically, all the details of the trip, but I was talking about the fact that I wanted to try to pull off a live stream before I left and give an opportunity to present as a preview this 12K that had been just busted to pieces from that horrible fall that it took to the ground. And I don't know if when I get back, I'll talk to Trish after she watches this. If she's satisfied that this is a sufficient live stream and a premiere to celebrate her machine, then I won't be doing another one. I might do a little video real quick when I get back from Florida and show how I've done the repair on this base that you saw. It pulls apart right now. If you join the live stream late, you'll want to go back and look, because I literally, with a little bit of pulling, separated this entire section here and on the back as well. The case right now is not safe. It's very, very dangerous. You wouldn't want to try to carry this 12K, and you might have a 12K with a similar case that is right on the edge of that glue letting loose. So you might want to, again, do a check, like I said, where you're kind of grabbing it and you're pulling on these corners to see if they're nice and secure, if that glue from the 1800s is still holding tight and true. But otherwise, I'm happy if Trish is happy. I always do it for the owners, and for all of you as well, obviously, so we can share the experience. But I think we put this machine through a good test. I really do. I think we kind of ran it through a little mini Olympics. We had a chance to sew genuine elk hide. We sewed protected full grain leather. We sewed 100% cotton with a stiffener. We sewed 100% cotton with no stiffener. And then we stitched off as well, which I initially couldn't remember because my mind is so scattered right now. We stitched off as well on these 2 layers of genuine heavy duty, blah, 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 denim as well. So, I think this is a good test of the machine. But if Trish says, could you do even more of an expansive live stream on my machine? I'll consider that. I'll definitely consider that, depending on how many other live streams have going on and how many more unboxings we have to do and all the other stuff. But I always like to try to accommodate the owner because they've made a major investment in sending this machine to the workshop. And I always want to honor them and honor their requests as best as I can. Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to set this. Let's see. Set this. Oh, I didn't even show the saddle gray leather we just sewed. I showed that little sew off sandwich we just did, and I totally excluded this. You can tell how distracted I am. So our final sew off sandwich, if I actually get it right, looks something like this on this live stream today. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to sometimes just jump into things by the seat of our pants and not specifically plan it out or announce it weeks in advance. You just do it. Just make it happen, right? Okay, I'll put on a little bit of music. I'm going to turn this 12K. Hopefully I don't make the base fall apart again. Because right now it's very, very unstable. Oh, there we go. Sorry, guys. I knocked over our friends. And again, I've announced it several times, but this beautiful stitch-off holder that you can see with all the little clips and the fun little vintage characters who probably would go back to the early 1900s, if not even the latter 1800s. Paula Noel made this for me so that I would have another resource to display stitch-offs. So again, so many generous souls in sending things to the workshop to help make my job a little bit easier and also make it a little bit more fun. You know, my other stitch off holder was kind of plain Jane. This adds a totally different dimension and character as you look at these different figures, kind of as a backdrop to the sew-offs. So thank you again to Paula for that. Paula has sent me several different fun things, as have other folks as well. It's always appropriate to acknowledge kindness and generosity. We look up here a little bit. You see those two little cars, the one on the left, which is a Singer car, the green one, and the one on the right, which is a Foff car, similar to the vehicles they would have used back in the day to go and service folks. Those were given to me by Roz from Michigan. And then in the center, we've got Peter Pan and Tinkerbell and the Phoenix, and then also the beautiful Cow Country Workshop wrought iron cutout as well. Those were all sent to me by Emma from Florida. So all kinds of generous souls that have a permanent part now in the workshop because of their thoughtfulness and their generosity. So fortunate, so fortunate. All right, so there's Trish's machine. The machine is all but done. The base is not. The base is a ticking time bomb still. So, all right, so let me put on some music, let you guys wrap up your chat, and have a of your Monday. I guess it's Monday, isn't it? Yeah. Have a great rest of your Monday. And I might share some shots, some pictures of the machines that I'm appraising down in Florida if I have time. I won't promise I'll do that, but I'll try. All right. Take care. And thank you to the thank you so much to the moderators. Thank you to the moderators, the leadership team for managing that side of the house, managing this live stream chat over here, which I keep trying to be a part of it because I don't want to. I know sometimes people will type complimentary things. They'll say, "Wow, that's amazing, Scott," or "Great job," or blah blah blah, and I want to acknowledge those folks. But I sometimes read too quickly and then I get it wrong. I've done that several times, so maybe I need to take a reading class. I don't know. Maybe I will take a reading class. Or maybe I need an assistant. I need someone that helps me in the workshop during live streams to manage things. That would be incredible. That would be incredible. All right, let's put on a little bit of music. Y'all have a great rest of your Monday. Take care, everybody. God bless. Yeah, that's boring. All right, this weird little song you're about to hear is called Ticklish. Ticklish. I have no idea what. Anyway, here it goes. I better get going.